My name is Max Sims. I'm from Lehigh and with the Lehigh CERT program, and presenting on using technology with your CERT team and some of the options. What I'm presenting here isn't, hey, this is what you should do. It's, hey, here's some options. Go ahead and pick and choose some of the stuff that you see and decide whether that is what you'd like to do for your team. Okay. First, I want to talk about the anatomy of a CERT team. Now, while teams can differ a little bit, how much support they get from the agencies can differ a little bit, there are some kind of universal things that generally are true about CERT teams. Like they're all or mostly volunteer. There's some teams out there that, they kind of say, the agency says, hey, go do your CERT thing, and it's CERT volunteers that run the whole deal. Some other teams, there may be one or two people from the sponsoring agency that have some level of involvement, but typically they've got another job they're also doing as well, and so they're not doing it all, right? And so we typically have volunteers that are stepping up to the plate to really drive the program and move it ahead. And a lot of times, it's not a ton of people. It's usually a few select people that get passionate about CERT, that see the vision, and get in and want to make stuff happen, right? Now, the problem with that is these people may not always stick around. There may be life changes and other things that mean, they're here for a year or two, and then they get a new job, or some other family change happens, or they get burned out. Does that ever happen on your teams? Yeah. And so because of that, you need to be flexible in how you're managing that. Even strong volunteers aren't necessarily always there when you may need them. Budget-wise, how many people have excessive budgets for their CERT teams? Like, I'm not sure what to do with all this money. Right? No, it doesn't really happen.
Yeah. Over $10. Yeah, over $10.
Okay, so either you've got a small budget that you're usually trying to justify every year, or you have no budget, which is sometimes can be the case, or you have a slice of someone else's budget, and it's by their graces that you're getting anything for your CERT team, right? So we're usually pretty budget conscientious on our CERT teams. And we usually don't have this standard CERT management system that everybody thinks should be out there, right? That, hey, let's go get the CERT management system and download it and implement it, and we'll all be happy, right? It doesn't exist. It really doesn't exist. Although I have some options to show you so you can see whether you like some of this stuff. Okay, so if we're talking about wanting to manage our CERT teams, some of the things we're going to want. We want cheap or free, right? Honest, free's awesome, right? The less money we're sticking into management software is the more money we're putting into supplies, into rewards, recognition, other things that are going to be important for our team. We really want this available anywhere and everywhere, right? We want to access it no matter where we are, wherever we're doing. Now, to some extent, that's impossible, but we do want to have as much flexibility to access to our management system. We want this thing to be able to restrict access to different pieces of it. There's some things we have in our CERT team we don't want everybody in the team to have access to. We're going to have a membership list. We don't need everybody on the CERT team to have access to the whole list. We want to be able to restrict and grant access rights, at our discretion. It'd be nice if we could collaborate, right? We need to divide and conquer in CERT. We can't have this siloed thing where we have one person as the king of one particular aspect of the team. When I first started doing CERT down in Springville, got trained, I kind of got excited about it. Said, hey, how can I help? It's like, I says, do you need some help with tracking your membership? Great. I am a computer programmer by trade, do a lot of stuff in computers, kind of figure stuff out and just make stuff work that needs to be worked. Well, back then, the tools we have now didn't really exist. And so what did I do? I set up a FileMaker Pro database because I knew FileMaker and I had done it before. But guess what? That meant I was the only person that accessed the database. Nobody else had access to it. If they wanted a report, I printed it out for them. If they wanted a new type of report, I had to create it and then get it to them. If they wanted to add something to the database or to the membership list, I had to do it. If we wanted to decide to start tracking attendance at activities and stuff, guess what? It was all on my shoulders to make it happen. So we've got to get away from that one-person siloed approach to how we deal with stuff. It'd be nice if we had a single login for our tools. Okay, that we didn't have to log into this over here and that over there, and we did this over there. It'd be nice if we had some stuff that worked together and we could log in once to do most of what we're doing. Okay, so Who can tell me what is a service provider out on the internet that does lots of cloud-based services that are mostly free and does tons of different stuff? Anybody can think of anyone? Google, right? Yeah, they do tons of stuff. And we're going to talk about lots of them. Actually, the list is going to be long. There's a lot more stuff that I didn't even put on here that they still do. It just doesn't necessarily apply to CERT quite as directly. So we're going to talk about Google Accounts. We're going to talk about Google Groups. We're going to talk about Google Mail, Google Calendar, Google Chat, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google Forms, Google Maps, Google Earth, Google Voice, Google Hangouts, Google YouTube, Google Sites, Google Apps Script, Google Apps, Google Chrome, Google Plus, and briefly touch on Google Analytics. So we got a lot of different stuff. You can see that's why I'm kind of wanting to rush through this stuff because there's a ton. Okay, Google Accounts. This is really, it's the key to all cool things Google. You know, you're not really going to do much in Google other than doing a little bit of Googling if you don't have an account. Okay, so a single login for all the tools and services. Once you log into your browser into one Google service, you move over to another service, you're going to be logged in. There's a few exceptions to that where it's going to re-prompt you to log in on some of their services, but generally, most services, once you log in, you're logged in for everything. For those services that do use space, with each Google account, you get 15 gigs of storage space. That's a good chunk of data. A lot of files can be stored in there. That's going to apply to like your Gmail, Google Drive, some of the other services that take some space will utilize that space there. Okay, a Gmail account is a Google account. So if you have a Gmail account, you've got a Google account. You can start using all the other stuff that's out there. There's probably stuff you've never even heard of, and just log in and jump over to that particular service and you can start doing stuff with it. But a Google account doesn't have to be a Gmail account. So if you decide, I just don't really want to do Gmail, I've got my email account, I like how it is, I don't want to do that, you can go create a Google account. It doesn't have to be a Gmail account. Okay? Okay, Google Groups. What Google Groups is, it's a mailing list. So in other words, you can get multiple people signed up on this list, you send an email to the list, and it sends it to everybody on the list. Okay? And you can restrict it. You can say only the people on the list can email the list, or only a specific set of people on the list that may be creators or something are able to send to the list. So say you create a list for your team. You create a Google Groups list for your team, but you only want certain membership or certain leadership to have access to actually post the list. You don't want every Joe Blow on your team to be able to email the list. Because you know, we all have a few of those on our teams that we have to watch and keep managed. So it's also kind of a basic discussion forum. You can decide as a subscriber to a list, you can say, I want to get the emails, or I can say I want to get digest of those emails. Maybe I get them daily or monthly or weekly, or say I only want to do it web. I don't really want to get an email. I'm only going to read the messages if I log in and read it in the discussion forum online. Okay? The other thing that's nice about Google Groups is it can be a rights group for other services. Okay? An example of that is in Lehigh CERT, we have a subset of our CERT team called the rehab team. It's a rehab team for our fire department, and we have a group for the rehab team that there's some content and things that are shared with the rehab team. Well, instead of going and saying these calendar here or this stuff over here is shared with the rehab team and put every single person's individual email address in it, that I just add them all to the group and then give rights to the group. That way, if people change on the team, I change the membership in the group, and it's changing the access they have to these resources the group has been shared to, instead of having to go to each one of them and change what access because someone decided to leave or we added someone to the team. I do it once, and everywhere it's shared, it gets applied. So it's very nice that way. Okay, Google Mail. So Google Mail, in and of itself, it's cool, it's great. People have been using it for a long time, been on Google Mail for years and years and years. But as it applies to CERT, what's important about that is thinking about how you can create role-based email accounts that aren't specifically owned by one person, okay? So what that enables us to do is we can take that account and we can forward it to other people. So instead of me going, hey, Julie, CERT team leader, who gives out their email address, and then a couple years later we switch out who's in the leadership, and now everybody who had Julie's email account before now has to go figure out who the new team leader is for the CERT team. Instead, we set up a role-based email account that's like team leader Lehigh at gmail.com, and we forward it to the people who's actually in charge, and then when they change, we just change who it forwards to. Okay? And we can change that whenever we want. We can also do autoresponders. Okay, so we can make it so anytime an email comes in, it automatically responds back to that person with some predetermined canned message saying, hey, thanks for emailing the Lehigh CERT team. We're so glad you emailed. We're going to get back with you shortly, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So you can do stuff like that. Google Chat. Google Chat is just basically an IM system. It's instant messaging, kind of like AOL Instant Messaging or MSN Messenger or some of the other ones out there, kind of like Skype. It has makes it so your team members can chat with each other whenever they want. It also supports audio and video chats. You can have a video call with people if you need to, kind of like Skype allows you to do. And you can use it right within Gmail. It's just right there on the side. I'll quickly show you what that looks like. Okay. So here's Google Groups. You can see here's one of the groups. I created a group for the conference committee. For this conference, we created a group and we emailed stuff around using that. Had a hard time getting some people to use it, but we still used it, particularly Jeff. Here's Gmail, okay? So I've got my email in here, and then I've got my chatting off to the side. I can do some video chatting. There's other features, like I can create some different tags. I can categorize my email and stuff, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. Okay, let's see here. Moving right along. Okay, the next thing is calendaring. Do we need calendaring for CERT teams? We don't really do anything, really. We don't need calendaring, do we? Oh, okay. So it's a web-based calendaring. The one nice thing about it is we can set up multiple calendars, okay, all within the same account if we want. And we can share those calendars around. We can have some calendars that are only for us specifically, or we can share those with specific people. We can share those with groups, a Google group, and we can make them completely publicly accessible. Multiple people can manage a particular calendar. Okay, so we could have a calendar for our team, and we could have 2 or 3 of our leadership that have the ability to manage that calendar. And it also syncs with many programs and most mobile devices. So like it can sync with Outlook on your PC. It can sync with iCal on your Mac. It can sync with iPhones and Android phones. I've got the Lehigh CERT calendar on my phone. So if I'm out somewhere and my program manager calls me, it's like, hey, I want you to schedule a training for this day. Okay, bam, 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 it's in there. Didn't have to go to the website, just put it in there. It syncs up. Since I'm an administrator on the account, I can add calendar items to Lehigh CERT calendar anytime I need to. Okay, we'll quickly show you some stuff about that. Okay. Go to the calendar tab here. Let me go back here. Okay, so here I've got the Lehigh CERT calendar. I've got a couple items here. We got a basic training course coming up. There's also a ham radio class coming up in Utah County. I put some of that stuff on here. And then up along the top here, this is our rehab team on-call schedule. So these people are on call for those days. Right now, Brian and Susan are on, well, actually next week. We're looking a week ahead. But now with the on-call calendar, this Lehigh CERT one is publicly available, but the on-call calendar, oops, I just turned the visibility off. I can go to the settings here, and if I look at the share of that, I can see John and Brian and me, I own it, and these guys can make changes in events, but then the team itself just sees the event. So they can't change the on-call calendar, but they can see it, okay? So there's an example of some of the sharing that can be done. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is Google Drive. Who has heard of Google Drive before? Heard a little bit about Google Drive? Okay, so Google Drive is kind of like Dropbox or Box or SkyDrive from Microsoft. These are cloud-based file storage systems with the ability to share, which is nice. So you'd want to use this to just get all your documents that you use for your CERT team and put them out there so your team has accessibility to them and they can get to them anytime they want to. On the internet, where you don't have to worry about, oh, hey, team leader, can you get me the latest SOG version we have? I really need to look at that. Email it out. Oh, hey, do you need this? Email it out. Right? That's old school. We want to do things a better way. Plus, it also has web-based document collaboration and editing. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's give you an example. Say, for example, I'm sitting here and I'm working with Sandy and Tal, and we're working on some document to do the next version of CERT credentialing or something. Okay, we're working with Jeff on it. Well, Jeff lives up in Ogden. Sandy lives up in Logan. I live in Lehigh, and Tal lives over in Vernal. Okay, so are we just going to travel every once in a while and get together and work on this stuff? No, that's silly. We can use Google Docs to collaboratively do this at the same time on the internet. So I can open up a document, share it with them. They can go in the document. We can all be editing the same document at the same time. There's actually a little chat panel we can bring out where we can chat with each other while we're doing the editing. I see everybody's cursor. I see what they're typing. They can see what I'm typing. And it's really cool. And you may think, well, what about, actually I'm going to mention that in a minute. Okay, so the things we can do within these collaboration documents, it's kind of Google Drive's Office documents. We can do word processing, we can do spreadsheets, we can do presentations, forms, drawings, and more. There's actually some third-party modules that will work with Google Docs as well. Okay, to start off with, we're going to talk about word processing. Oh wait, some more things about Google Drive. It is online, but there is an option to do an offline mode where, and it's not collaborative anymore because once you're off the internet, you don't have that connection. But you can do it without internet access. It does have a Dropbox-like desktop sync. How Dropbox, you install it and you throw files into a folder and it syncs it up to the cloud. Google Drive does that same thing. Theirs, though, does have a disadvantage in that it doesn't have multiple account support. If you're only doing one account, it's great. It'll work fine. I do tons of stuff. I'm a geek. And so I have multiple Gmail accounts, multiple Google accounts. My work uses Google's accounts. I have one with the CERT team, and I have my own. So I use a different program that's a third party called InSync that enables me to do multiple at the same time. It does cost a little bit for it. It's about $15 per account. And the other thing that's nice is it does some document conversion on the fly. And what I mean by that is all of these different Google Office docs that we can edit in the cloud, when it syncs it down to my desktop, it converts them into Microsoft Office documents. So a word processing turns into a Word file, a spreadsheet turns into Excel, a presentation turns into PowerPoint files on my local machine, which is really nice.
Can you go the other way?
Yeah, so I can drop an Excel file on there, and when it copies it up, it turns it into a Google spreadsheet. Now, obviously, in the conversion process, it's not always perfect. The more kind of general and basic your document is, the higher chance you have of things syncing across well, but it does do it fairly good. And typically, I find the most common times that I do that is I'll have something I've been working on in Google Docs and I bring it to my desktop. And for some reason, I want to bring it into Excel instead of do it in the browser. And I do some changes, save it again, and when it saves it back to that folder and syncs my changes back up into the cloud. Okay, Google Documents, real-time collaborative editing with versioning. So you may be thinking, well, I don't really want Sandy to be editing my file because she might screw it up. And I put a lot of work into this, and if she screws it up, I have to redo that. Well, not with versioning, because the versioning keeps track of all the changes of your document from the start to where you are. So I can go back and say, what was the condition of my document an hour ago, and it allows me to go back to that state. Or even 2 days ago, or a week ago. So that's really nice. Like I mentioned before, several people can remotely work together on a document. Some of the things we could do with the word processing documents is event planning, meeting notes, after action reports, stuff like that. We also have Google Spreadsheets. They have a lot of cool stuff. I actually probably do more in the spreadsheets than I do in documents. Same thing, real-time collaborative editing with versioning. Same versioning happening in the spreadsheets as well. Some of the possible uses I have, membership lists, duty rosters, check-in forms, mail merge with the assistance of AppScript. If I get time at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about that. Google Forms. Okay, how many people went and used a form to register for the conference here? Program managers, a few of you did. Okay, you've used Google Forms. We use Google Forms for our registration form. Okay, it's an online form that can be emailed out. The submissions from those forms get dumped into a Google spreadsheet where we can do whatever we want with it. Okay, also creates a summary report of the results. We'll show you that in a minute. Some of the things we can do with that, we can do surveys, we can do sign-ups, some registrations like I showed you, and I'm going to show you here real quick some of those things. Okay. So here's an example spreadsheet, and this is just an example membership list. This is all random data I generated to show you this. So I can have, an ID, their names, different details about it, keep it in here. I could sort this, group it, do different things with it. Right here I've got this latitude and longitude. This thing actually has, I'm going to talk about this in a minute, but since I'm already here, I'll mention it. I've got a couple different scripts in here that have been written, that I've written in AppScript. It uses JavaScript to do a couple things. One of them is to take their address and turn it into a latitude and longitude point, and I can do other things with. Then the other script uses that latitude and longitude over here, and using the shape data that I'm going to show you in just a minute, almost getting ahead of myself here, to tell me which division that person lives within my city. Okay?
The geocoding you made, or it's something that's available?
So the geocoding is a service through Google, through their Google Maps service, that's available to you in the Google Apps script, that I can say, here's an address, tell me the latitude and longitude for, and that does the geocoding for me.
But you create the division.
Yeah, so the division map, and the next thing I'm going to show you is maps, and I'll show you the division maps. Okay? Okay, so to forms. So here's a form. This is one that I created last year when we were doing the Great Shakeout. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to survey our members that at the moment that the shakeout was supposedly happening, to say, what's your preparedness right now? Where you're standing, where you are, what's your level of preparedness? And so this survey goes through a whole series of questions for them to basically rank and say, yeah, here's how prepared I was. Okay? So that's an example of one. And then we can also show, here's the responses of that in a summary of it. So this is automatically created by the Google Forms. It was a rather lengthy survey, covered lots of stuff. There's an example of the results of that. This is the spreadsheet of where all those answers went, so you can see what that looks like. And it automatically generates this for you. So that's the Google Forms there. Let's see here. I'm going to show you real quick. So in here, one of the things I can do is I mentioned about versioning. So here I can say see version history. You can see here's all the different, versions of that file. I started working this at the beginning of the month, and then I've made changes even today. I can go back to any of these changes, and it's loading up that change. So here you can see the latitude and longitude, and divisions are missing, and then I ran the script, and now it highlights the green stuff. Here's the stuff that changed. So it's really nice that way to be able to see how the document has changed, or be able to go back to a previous version of it. Okay, let's move on to Google Maps. Okay, so do we care about mapping in CERT? Do we try good reasons to use mapping? What kind of stuff would we map?
Evacuation.
Evacuation routes, maybe? Okay, what else?
Earthquake faults?
Earthquake faults, we can certainly map that.
Or certain hazmat?
Where your certs are located at, maybe if you've got divisions or sectors or areas. What's that?
Groups or local projects or local emergencies.
Yeah, a lot of different things we can use to map. Okay, so Google My Maps is a variation of maps where it allows you to create your own maps over the regular Google Map. Okay, so you can share and you can create and share your own custom maps. You can create points and lines and shapes. You can tell it what kind of icon you want to use for those points. You can upload your own points if you want. You can import and export this data via KML or GeoRSS. We'll talk about that in a minute. So some of the things: create maps of team divisions, sectors, areas. You know, how are you splitting up your city? Create maps of areas for an exercise or an event. Map a route to be followed, like an evacuation route, or maybe you have a particular area, like you need to make an assignment. Like, hey, we need to split up how these different teams are doing this thing. We want you to go report, help these people evacuate over here, or these people evacuate here, or maybe there's a fire and there's an area of the city that's been evacuated. Map out what that boundary of that evacuation area is, right? Okay, Google Earth is kind of a variation on Google Maps, but it allows you to do things in 3D. We'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. It can use Google My Maps. You can overlay that stuff on that. You can actually create some fly-through animations that are kind of cool. It has a standalone application you can get, and it also works within your browser, right within Google Maps itself. The standalone stuff comes in a free version, plus you have some other paid tiers that allow you to do more extensive things that you can look at if you want. Okay, we'll look at that real quick. Okay. There's our mapping here. Okay, so here's a couple maps. I'll turn that one off. So here's a map of the Lehigh CERT divisions. This is a map that I created. I just used the tool here, went through, and this is how you get to My Places maps. So if I wanted to, I could come in and I could edit this, add some points to it, change the shapes if I want. Each one of these, has a label on what it is, so I can tell what each one are. Then another example is I can have another map, and I can combine shapes and lines and points. I've decided to keep into two different maps that both can be turned on at the same time. This is my example Northlake CERT team, not to be confused with the Lehigh CERT team. And then here's all my sample data in here. I can put in details in here. If I want to edit this map, say for example I wanted this guy to have a different icon, I could say, oh, you get a red icon, and I can say this guy is maybe I want to say this guy's a plumber. Okay. So now his detail is going to reflect that. Then if I decide, oh, hey, this is really cool, but I want to understand the terrain that's going on, I can jump myself over into Google Earth mode and have it show me how this all is working out with the terrain. Okay. Change my perspective here. Zoom in a little bit more. I can see how these people are up on the mountain. Change my viewpoint. Look at it a different way. So that's Google Maps right there, or with Google Earth. And like I said, it has a desktop standalone application as well that can be used. So obviously, there's tons of stuff that can be done with this. Over here. Here's another example of a map. This is all the different blocks that we have set up in our neighborhood area. So I can see, I can zoom into the level where I'm seeing the individual households. So a lot of cool things you can do with that. And I can turn around and I can take this. Where's it at? Oh, here it is. So I can take this and I can embed that into a web page if I want, or I can take that URL and email it out to people, and people can now jump on and look at that. They won't be able to edit it because I haven't shared it with them, but they will be able to see it. Okay. Okay, moving right along here. Google Voice. So Google Voice is another cool service. Probably not many people know about it. It's actually a service they acquired from another company, kind of integrated with the rest of their stuff. But basically, it's a virtual phone number with its own voicemail. And what I mean by a virtual phone number is not really a real phone number, but what it's intended to be is it's intended to be a phone like redirector number. And what I mean by that is that in my account, I go in and I configure real phone numbers that are mine, and then, I can also pick from a large pool of available numbers. When someone calls that number, it rings all the numbers I've configured, and then whichever the first number is that picks up gets the call. So like in my account, I've got my office number, I've got my home number, and I've got my cell phone number. So when someone calls my Google Voice number, all three of those ring, and I just, whatever I'm at, if I'm in the office, I pick it up and I get the call, and it's kind of fun. Okay?
Could you configure this to be a reverse 911?
No, and every single session has asked me that. It's only meant to be this way, where you dial one number and it rings out to multiple numbers, and whichever one gets it picks it up. Now, one possible use of this, I can also set active hours for each number. So like, for example, Lehigh Cert, we have a virtual Google Voice number. That's the number for Lehigh Cert. It's not a real number, it's a Google Voice number. And how I've got this configured is during specific hours, it rings the secretary at the fire department. And during the non-business hours, it rings my cell phone. And I could add someone else on the team to ring as well, and then we can pick up the line. So someone always is there to answer. There's also mobile apps for it that work really well. So if someone rings, I can get a notification on my phone. If they leave a voicemail, it can give me a notification saying the voicemail came in. It also does a transcribing of the voicemail, and it can send me a text message with the text of what they said. It's not perfect, but you generally can get most of the idea of what they left in the message, and sometimes it's actually spot on. I can send and receive SMS text messages through this virtual number, and I can do that through the app or other means. I can have those SMS text messages forwarded to a mobile phone if I want to, or if I don't want to, I can just get a notification on the smartphone app that I got a text at that number, and then I go to the app to read the text instead of going to my SMS text program. I can make and receive calls right through Google Chat. Remember the Google Chat I showed you there in Gmail? I can go to that, type in a phone number, and if I've got my microphone and speaker set up on my computer, make a phone call right from my computer, no phone necessary. So that's kind of a real number, not really. Here's an example. Lehigh Cert's Google Voice number is 801-810-LEHIGH, and then my personal one is 801-999-8MAC. It would ring this phone.
And
It would ring my house as well.
our house.
And my
and his
desk.
office.
Yeah, so you might.
But it is a different ringtone. When it rings at our house, I know that it's his Google Voice number that's calling
So
because
his home picks up before that one.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
happened.
then the home gets it. You'll probably
Yes.
talk to John.
Johnny and no.
Yeah. So now here's one possible use of this. Say, for example, you've got a wildfire on the edge of your city. Okay. Say, for example, Sandy's got a fire on the hill, and you've got people freaking out and stuff, and you decide we need help fielding all these calls. You could have, and I would probably set this up in advance, set up a number that could be your call-in number for information. But then what you can do is you can go into it, you configure 6 people that it's all redirecting to their home lines. They just sit at home. You use a Google Doc that they're all in at the same time. They get a call and they start logging what people are asking. And maybe they've got a preset script that maybe is another Google Doc that's the EOC is going, here's what you can say to people that call in. Here's the specific information you can provide to them. People call the number. It rings all the phones. One of the persons picks it up, starts talking to them. Someone else calls in. It rings the other phones that aren't busy. They pick it up. You literally could have your own virtual call center off of a Google Voice number. And using Google Docs to coordinate what information is being tracked. If they've got a question, maybe they use either Google Docs or Google IM to be sending text information between the key people to say, hey, I've got someone that's asking about this. They want to know if this particular address is in the evacuation zone. They want to know where they're supposed to take their little kitty to, whatever it is. So this is one thing you could use as a use case for using Google Voice. Because I know every single time we have a fire like that, one of the things that's a scramble for cities to manage is how do they effectively communicate with the public. Okay, yes?
So you can set that up and within a second it's ready to
Sure. Sure. And really, so to set up a phone number on Google Voice, all you need to do is you put in what the number is. Then what happens is the Google Voice system will call that number, and you tell that, when you configure it, it says, here's a code. And it gives you like this 4 or 5 digit code. And then you tell the person that has that number, here's your code. It calls them, they type in the code, and then their number is in the queue. And then if they like, okay, I'm done, I don't have any time to help this, you go to the manager and you kill out their number, they get pulled out of the pool. So, okay, Google Plus. Okay. It's basically Google's social network, not really a big deal. It's not really anything particularly special about that for CERT teams. But it does have a very nice photo gallery, and it's a nice place to be able to store photos for your team. The reason why, and it's a little bit better than Facebook, is because it stores the full resolution of it, whereas Facebook downscales theirs. And you can always get your photos back out. It's basically, the galleries is basically Picasis, if anybody's familiar with Picasis, which was Google's other thing. It's really the same thing. If you go to Picasis, it takes you over to Google Plus galleries. And it also has a new service called Google Hangouts, and these are really cool. Google Hangouts is free video conferencing and screen sharing. Okay, it's kind of like GoToMeeting or Skype or some of the other, like Adobe Connect, some of the other video conferencing and sharing applications. You can have up to 10 people at a time in a conference call. You can share your screens with each other. You can share YouTube videos with each other and some other stuff. If you need to do more than 10 participants at a time, you can do what's called Google Hangouts on the air. And what that does is it makes it so other people can participate. They can't participate, but they can watch the Hangout. The 10 people can participate, but everybody else is just kind of observing. The use case for this would be like, say for example, you decided you wanted to have some training you're doing and make it available for people to watch virtually over the internet instead of having to be there in person. You could use Google Hangouts over the air to do that. When it's done, it automatically saves that recording to YouTube. So if you use it, then you've just recorded your training that now you can use on YouTube and people can come and see it later. It's great for virtual meetings and trainings, and you can easily add a Hangout to any Google Calendar event. It's right there within the interface. To show that to you real quick. Okay, so now we're going to show you this real quick. So click on that, and then right down here, video call, add a video call. That's a Google Hangout. So I click on that, it's going to give me a URL that has the ID of that particular Hangout. I can share that URL. People just, when it's time, click on the URL, open their browser, and they're in the Hangout. Okay? Okay. So that ties in with Google YouTube. YouTube is actually a Google product now. Okay, so Google YouTube, what I would suggest is you create a channel in Google YouTube and share videos for your team. You know, what kind of videos might you have? You might have some training videos, maybe some event and exercise videos if you recorded some stuff. Promotional videos. We've got a video that a guy created for an event we do down in Lehigh called Foam Day on July 24th. And took a bunch of pictures and put together in this kind of cool music video, so we posted that to our channel. Okay, so
Is that
now,
going against your 15 gigs?
no, YouTube content does not go against your 15 gigs. Okay, Google Sites. Here's where we kind of bring all this stuff we've been talking about and package it up into a nice, pretty package and do cool stuff with it. So Google Sites is a free online website creator. No programming needed. You don't have to do JavaScript, you don't have to do HTML, you don't have to do CSS. You just go there, you create it, you populate, you put content in there, upload pictures, do cool stuff. And it's free. It's all hosted free. People can come to it for free. No cost to it whatsoever. Plus, it has a lot of really cool widgets that you can integrate other Google things into your website. And we'll show you some examples of that. You can create your own custom widgets if you want. Show you an example of that in a minute. If you want to and you have some experience, you can do some HTML. You can do most of it. There are a few things you can't do. You can't do JavaScript unless you're doing a custom widget. But if you have some experience in HTML and you want to kind of really tweak how it looks, it'll let you do that. One of the cool things about it, though, is it allows you to create custom or secured sections or pages. Okay? An example of that is with working with some people on the most recent multi-cert event we did here in the Wasatch Front this last September. Our planning committee, that event is on that utah.certteam.us website, but we had a section of that was for the planning committee where we had content and docs and financial things. We were the budget of it and different things and who had what assignments and stuff was on there, but it was away from the public eye. It was only available to the committee members that had logged into the site to see the content for them. And it actually worked out pretty well. Yeah, I'll show you that real quick. Let's see here. Okay, so this is a Google site. The Utah Cert Teams page is a site. And you can see I've got some different things here. This is a little widget that shows me the blog for the site. Google Sites has a basic blog functionality you can do. It's not anywhere near as feature-rich as, say, like Blogger or WordPress and doing themes and stuff, but it does the basics. And really, a lot of times for cert, you just really need to do the basics, right? Doesn't need to be fancy, just needs to get the job done. Here's another widget over here. It's a calendar. Can show you a bunch of calendar stuff. I can also go to another page over here that has a full-size calendar in it that we can look at. And then here in the middle, this is a custom widget that I wanted to be able to show the Twitter feed for the Utah Cert Team Twitter account. You can see some of the stuff going on in there. Also, you can do other things like, for example, here's a little upcoming event thing. You can see before today, I had a countdown to say how many days till the CERT conference. Well, it's here today, so there's 0 days. We have a bunch of other stuff on here. Here's the page for the conference. A bunch of stuff in here. I can go in and I can edit this. Now you can see I've got this little header up here. This shows up because I'm logged in. I can go in and edit this page if I want to. We have the conference schedule that you guys have seen. This is a Google spreadsheet that's being pulled into a module here, a little widget. Okay. Also have a location map. This is also another little widget that just bring in a Google map, show the address of where this is at. In this other event here, that last multi-cert event, I have a photo gallery that has another widget in it. And let's go over here. Here's all the different photos that we have from that event. And you can go through and look at all the stuff. And we have quite a collection of photos here from it. Fun thing you can add to your site. Oh, see this planning here? Here's the planning section. Here's all the stuff we had in our planning section. The public doesn't see this. Since I'm logged in, I see it. So we also had a location map for this. And I think, I'm trying to remember. Okay, so this just kind of shows where it's at. I thought this one had overlays on it, but we had a press page where we had a press release for the event, some different information on it. Also, Lehigh Cert uses Google Sites. We have different things in here. We use Google Forms within the site. So here's a form. If someone's already cert trained and they want us to add them to the team, we have them fill out a form here. It goes to a spreadsheet that then we follow up with them. We have information about the rehab team. I'm not logged in, so I don't see the rehab team stuff. But we have a whole section of stuff just for our rehab team that's shared with them and secured. Okay, so moving along here, we're going to talk about Google Apps Script now. Now this is an advanced thing. If you know people that are developers or inclined to learn how to program and stuff, Google Apps Script kind of really enables you to kind of take things to the next level on some stuff. And I think I showed you some Google Apps Scripts already where I can automate some different things. It enables me to kind of write a script that runs on the server that can tie together different pieces of Google services. So like, for example, I can integrate forms with Google Calendar. I can make a form that with some script would automatically create a calendar event if I wanted. I can integrate spreadsheets with Gmail. That's, and I have a mail merge script that enables me to take a list, take a template of an email with different tokens, there's different spots in that email, and pull out different pieces, plug that in, and send that customized email along. So Google Script can do some cool stuff. Google Apps. Okay, so Google Apps is kind of taking all this stuff and wrapping it all together in a managed fashion. Okay, so I can take all these services and take a bunch of accounts and kind of take them together and manage them together. An organizational level management of accounts. So like, for example, where I work, they use Google Apps. Okay, so our office email goes through Gmail, our office calendar is through Google Calendar, but our IT staff has access to create accounts, remove accounts. If they remove my account, they can take all the documents that are in that account or my email and move it over to somebody else. So even though it's my accounts, because they're the administrator of the Google Apps domain, they have some management over the top of that. The nice thing about it is it does cost money for most organizations, but if you're a registered 501(c), you can go apply and you can get your own free Google Apps account. So Lehigh Cert has a Google Apps account, although we actually don't have the Google Apps nonprofit. What happened is they used to allow for a limited free Google Apps account, but then they turned that off. We got grandfathered into that before. But if you are a 501(c), you can go get it still.
What about a 19C?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to them. You have to go research it and find out. I know a 501(c) does qualify. It's also free for education as well. Like the school that my kids go to, I know they use Google Apps for their email and different stuff. Okay, Google Chrome. The only reason I really mentioned Google Chrome, it's Google's web browser. It does some account syncing across computers and platforms, but it has multi-profile support. And if you notice, when I was in there, I was switching between different windows in Google Chrome. And up in the corner, in fact, I'll show you real quick. So this one right here, it's got a green guy there. He is part of that's my Lehigh Cert account, okay? But if I go over to this window, that's my personal Gmail account. So I'm actually logged into multiple services just in different windows, and it keeps them separate. And I can be actively doing stuff in Google Docs personally, or Google Docs for my work, or Google Docs for Gmail, and they can just be different windows, and I can be logged in at the same time, and that's kind of nice. And I don't have to log out of this to log into that, so that's why I like Google Chrome. Oh, I restart this. Starts beginning the slide. Google Analytics, just quickly mention this. If you have a website, you want to kind of track what's happening on your website stuff, it's a great product to be able to track activity and see what's going on. Okay, so QR codes. Who knows what QR code is? Anybody seen them? A few people? Okay, QR code is this little thing right up here. Okay, it's this little graphic that is formulated in a particular way. The three little square things on the corners is the giveaway that that's a QR code. There's other types of barcodes. It's a particular type of barcode. There's others out there that are called 3D barcodes. But this is kind of one of the more common ones. Has kind of received some good adoption. It's a standard to encode data in a pattern. So there's some data encoded in that pattern up there. You can scan and decode the data with a smartphone app. Okay? iPhones have apps for it. Android phones have apps for it. Windows Phone has apps for it to decode that data. The one thing to know about the codes is the more data you're trying to encode into that barcode, the larger it has to be because it has to fit it in there, make it so it can be read. Obviously, smaller codes are easier to scan because the smaller code is, you can actually blow it up bigger in the same space, and it makes it easier for the app to easily scan it even at farther distances, because obviously the farther away you are, the smaller it's getting to your phone, makes it harder to scan. There's lots of free encoders available, and there's a few different types of things you can put in it. You can put in a website URL, you can put in an email address, telephone address, number, SMS number, contact card. Now you're probably asking, what's the difference between a telephone number and an SMS number? They're kind of the same. What it depends on is how it tells your phone to deal with it. So if you put it as a telephone number, it's going to prompt your phone to call the number. Whereas if you put it as an SMS, it's going to prompt your phone to go to your SMS app to send a message to it. So you can do it slightly different. A contact card, a calendar event. In Lehigh Cert, I use QR codes on our class posters that we put up that is a calendar event of that class. So if they go and scan it, they can add a calendar event right there to their calendar that is that training class. So there's lots of different ways you can use QR codes. They're great when you want to be able to easily communicate some information to people, when they're not at their computer. I mean, it doesn't make sense to really email someone a QR code. I mean, just email them the data. They can easily do stuff with it. They're meant for out where people might scan them.
I was just going to say that in Sandy, we actually started using these a lot this last year, and when the 4th of July came around, we actually put QR codes in all the fireworks stands, and we also gave all of our engine captains business cards with QR codes on them to hand to the citizens, so that if they had questions about the new law, they could just go and scan the QR code when they were available at a computer. So it's an easy way to get out a lot of information quick.
Yeah, it's accessible to people that can use them.
So do you create that through Google then? Because I know what they are.
You can. So I'm going to show you something here in just a minute. For the website URLs, you can do that. And how you do that is through goo.gl. This is Google's URL shortener. What a URL shortener is if you look at a lot of website URLs, they can get rather lengthy. If you took that whole thing and encoded it into a QR code, it'd be nice, big, and chunky. It'd be really complex to scan. But if you use a URL shortener, which takes that whole thing and turns it into a small URL, and what happens is when someone goes to that URL, it actually is going to Google, and then they're looking up going, oh, here's the real one you want to go to, and it redirects your browser over to where you need to go. So it makes them shorter, which means when you put them into a QR code, it makes a smaller, tighter, easier to scan code. Plus, it also provides you some click-through tracking. So like if you use those to create your QR codes and put them out there, you can tell every single time someone has scanned and followed that URL, because it goes through Google first and then it goes to your destination. And it gives you this nice little reports. You can see when they scan, how many people were scanning it and following your code. These are great for email as well, because in an email it's really nice to have a nice tight URL you're sending to someone instead of these big long ones that wrap down to several lines. And it's like, did I click it right? And yeah. So there's a lot of nice things about a URL shortener. Like I mentioned before, I use these on posters and signs and different things. Business cards are a great idea as well. Okay, so I'm kind of done talking about the Google products. I'm going to talk about a couple other different things that I've used that have been useful in our team. The first one is GroupMe. GroupMe is group chat and via SMS. Okay, it's kind of like a mailing list for text messaging. So what you do is, like a mailing list, the people that you want to have in the group get signed up on it, and then when someone sends a text message to that group, it sends that text message back out to everybody that's on the group. You get your own unique phone number or text message number when you create a group, and then you can just say, okay, here's the number for our group. Like I said, text sent to the group, number gets sent to all the members. You can participate in the group through a website. Once you've created your account, you can go and participate through the website. They also have a mobile app. So if, say for example, you're on a low texting plan or you have to pay for all your text, you could just download the app to your smartphone and participate that way, and it wouldn't cost you anything. And with the app, you can also send pictures, video clips, and if you want to, say, here's my location. So some cool things with that. Well, the way that we're using GroupMe and Lehigh CERT is we have our firefighter rehab team. It's a sub-team of our CERT team. And within that team, we have got a GroupMe group set up so that if we get deployed, we have 2 people that are on call. They're supposed to respond immediately. But the rest of the team, using GroupMe, can respond and say, hey, I'm available. My response time would be this. Then the team leader, once they get or find out more information about what they're responding to, can decide, do I need additional resources for this call out or not? And they can say, hey, Julie, we want you to respond, or Bob, we also want you to respond, doing it all through text messaging instead of having to call people. You know, did you get through to them? Did you not? A lot of people really like to just use text messaging for quick messaging like that. So that's how we're using it. Okay, the last one I want to talk about is a product I came across just recently called Mission Manager. And this is basically a free web team manager. It honestly has almost everything I want in a manager to manage a CERT team. The downside of it is the interface is terribly ugly. It's not pretty. But it does lots of stuff. So I can track my members and teams. I can track their skills and their certifications. I can track what trainings they've done, when they've participated in things. I can track what kind of specific equipment they have. Say, for example, I want to know who has ham radios and who doesn't. I want to know who has a jump kit or who doesn't. Who's got crowbars or other stuff. I can put that in there and track it if I want to. When they're out on a call out or a mission, I can track their check-ins. I can set up teams. I can create assignments, assign people to different things. I can map the operations that are going on for that incident. And I can log all the activity that's going on to it. And there's a bunch of stuff I haven't even listed here because I didn't want to do multiple slides on this. So we'll look at that real quick. Okay. Here we go. Go to the other browser window. Okay, I'll log in here to my example account I created. Okay, so as you can see, the interface is not pretty. It's kind of, but it's there, and it can do the job, which is good. So if I look at my members here, you can see all the different things that I've got here: documents, equipment. It's got a calendar, there's a configuration tab. I can map some stuff, messaging, different reports, set up, assign tasks for people to do that aren't associated with an incident. They can do time tracking on the members themselves. I can have an ID, standard, information. SMS address would be the email address that would send them a text. So, like for example, I've got AT&T, so mine is like my phone number at txt.att.net or something like that. So you can put in that specific address if you want to be able to send text via the system. Different phone numbers, call signs for APRS, information about like what agency they're associated with. If you want to do different rankings, you want to set up different units, and all these different lists that you see here, like this stuff is configurable. What those are is configurable. What units are there is configurable. You can say, hey, what division they're in. It looks like somebody decided that they assign radios out and they want to keep track of which radio people have, so it's in there. All this other stuff here, emergency medical information about your team, that would be awesome to have. Emergency contact information, what equipment people have. All this is configurable. You can decide what equipment is important for you to know whether they have. Certifications and expirations. Have they taken ICS 100? How about 800, 700, 200? If it looks like someone decided they paid dues to theirs, you could track whether they paid their dues. You can say, hey, when's the last time they've been CPR and AED trained? Have they had training in the landing zone, if that's important to you? I don't think ambulance driver is necessarily important to cert, but the point is this list is configurable. You can configure it to how you want it to run on your team. You can put in a photo, so when you run reports or create an organization chart, it will pull their photo in for that. And then there's rights levels. You can say what kind of level of access they have to the system. I'm going to quickly go look at missions to show you some of the stuff that's available in that. So here's a sample mission that actually gets pretty popular when you first create your account. So we have a bunch of details about the mission, where the command post is, what the mission's about. We have a mission, we can give it a mission number, what type it is. This sample one here is a lost person. This list of mission types is configurable again. You can configure mission types that you want to put in there. Some information, this is for like radio channels. You could specify details about who's responding, what the location is. There's some GPS location. Then you've got some other tabs down here. What's the description of it? What are the objectives? What's the weather? A mission checklist, a final mission report. Even within it, you probably didn't notice, but all these menus changed. All this stuff up here is now applicable to the mission. You have an event log of what's gone on in the mission. Within the members here, you can see who's there. You have a where is it? Check-in, check-out, that's what it is. Here's a check-in, check-out, and you can search or by ID or name, so they can come in and say, log me in. Over here on Teams, I can come in and I can configure teams based upon who has been there. This list here would show all the people that have not been assigned to a team yet, and I can just drag and drop people to say, hey, you're off the team, you're on the team. Within the personnel over here, I can see who is on different teams, who's available. I can make assignments for different activities over here. Based upon how I flag different people, I can filter what I see. Radio logs, reports, all sorts of different types of reportings and stuff. So as you can see, a ton of stuff in there. I haven't really done like totally evaluating. We haven't really moved to a Lehigh cert, but it's free. It's completely free. They don't charge a thing for it. You can donate to them if you want.
I was going to ask you that. Also about is it VEOC, the state's software? Do you know if any of this works with theirs?
I don't know. I don't know.
Would you share this with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of the slides. The URL's on the slides.
No, I mean, you've configured all this.
So when you go and create an account, it pre-populates it with some sample stuff. I imported some more members just to show more in there.
I was asking if we could share
Yeah.
yours.
I really haven't done hardly anything other than I imported some additional members into it.
Okay.
You could, like,
But when you
import from
first create-
a spreadsheet,
What's that?
import from a spreadsheet, or
Yeah, in fact, there's a whole import where you import it and you say this column matches this, and this goes to this, and this goes to this. So yeah.
So which of all these things should we use then?
Well, okay, so like, for example, I probably wouldn't use this for calendaring. I really like using Google Calendar. I would still use Google Drive and Docs. But I would probably move away from my Google Spreadsheet version of membership and move to this because it has the membership. It ties in. So the one thing I haven't done on my system yet is the ability to track participation in events. So I can go create a report and say, what did Bob do over the last 3 years and see all his activity. I can't track certifications. I can't track who's taken ICS stuff. I have no way of really doing team management tracking on an incident. This provides a ton of that, right? So would I just do this? Probably not, but I would probably do some of the stuff I'm doing now differently using Mission Manager instead. Okay, so that's all I've got. There's my email address.